I'm Alex Berger, and today I'm going to be continuing my discussion about kratom or kratom. A lot of great comments for my first video. Today I'm going to be discussing whether or not it is properly a drug or not. So first I want to address the pronunciation of the word kratom or kratom. Both pronunciations are legitimate in English. They are both in the Oxford Dictionary. There are a lot of different ways to pronounce this plant name. Particularly in the original Thai, Malaysian. There's Ketum, but we're going to say kratom for the purposes of this video, but kratom is absolutely acceptable. So is the plant kratom a drug? Potentially not, potentially so. It depends on what your definition of drug is. And for my purposes, I'm a criminal defense attorney. So the definition that I care about is law enforcement's definition, because they're going to be the individuals that are making choices about whether or not to arrest someone or not. So what they think is a drug is important to understand what we should do and what you can do in terms of criminal defense. So the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is the federal agency that's responsible for most impaired driving investigation training. They put on 3 different major courses for this. They do the Standardized Field Sobriety Test course, they do the Advanced Roadside Impaired Driving Enforcement course, and they do the Drug Recognition Expert course. The second 2, ARIDE and DRE, are drug related. They are specifically on how drugs impact the body, how officers can understand drugs, how officers can classify drugs, and how officers can know if someone's impaired by drugs. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has a definition for the word drug. And this is a definition that those who go through that training have to memorize and write down on their written exam, both for ARIDE and DRE. According to them, a drug is any substance that, when taken into the human body, can impair the ability of the person to operate a vehicle safely. Again, a drug is any substance that, when taken into the human body, can impair the ability of the person to operate a vehicle safely. Under that definition, if kratom has any impact on the central nervous system, it is a drug. Also, arguably, a bullet is a drug because when taken into the human body, it can impair the ability of that person to operate a vehicle safely. Basically, anything that affects your thinking, your ability to move, your balance, your ability to stay awake, affects you at all, is a drug under this definition. So it is an inclusive, they call it an enforcement-oriented definition. Under this, kratom is absolutely a drug. The plant itself is a drug. Caffeine is a drug. Tea is a drug if it has caffeine in the leaves. All of these things are drugs. Now, what we really mean when we talk about the drug kratom, we're not talking about just the leaf. We're not talking about the plant itself. We are talking about the 2 psychoactive chemicals that are in there, the alkaloids. That is mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine. Those are the 2 chemicals that affect the central nervous system. And I will say that mitragynine doesn't really have as big of an effect on the central nervous system. It is present in the plants in fairly large quantities. That's the one that really does most of the effects that people get when they use just the leaf, the non-offensive, non-problematic effects. Now, the 7-hydroxymitragynine, that chemical occurs in very low amounts in the plant naturally. And what some of these things that they're selling, these compounds that they're calling kratom, it contains very high amounts of 7-hydroxymitragynine, which means that it is something that really messes with you, affects you. That chemical can be totally derived and distilled from the plant kratom, and they just increase the concentration of the 7-hydroxymitragynine. But the point is that's the real drug. I would say that the 7-hydroxymitragynine, otherwise called 7-OH, is the one that people are potentially overdosing on, that mimics opioids to the extent where people are impaired just like they would be from opioids. That's the one that we're really concerned about when we're talking about kratom, is just that one. Not so much the leaf, not so much the plant, not so much even the mitragynine. Now, one thing that's in the literature that's interesting that I'm going to keep exploring is, when you take a substance into your body, it starts getting broken down by your liver, your kidneys, various other mechanisms in your body. And it breaks down into what are called metabolites, which is a lesser chemical. that's broken up, and so it's not the same chemical. It's how your body processes anything like alcohol or THC. So the metabolite is what your body breaks a substance down into. It appears as though 7-hydroxymitragynine breaks down in your liver into just mitragynine. So because your body, as part of the enzymes and the digestion and the breaking it apart, just breaks off those 7 OH groups and just leaves you mitragynine. But it's important to know that that the second compound is actually a metabolite. Your body breaks it down into it. And the only thing that they can test for currently in the state crime lab is the mitragynine. They can't test for the more important, more psychoactive substance, the 7-OH, the 7-hydroxymitragynine. Anyway, this is a little bit in the weeds on the chemistry, but the point is under law enforcement's definition, even the plant itself of kratom is a drug. The substances and the products that they derive from it are drugs, and anything that contains any amounts of the mitragynine and the 7-hydroxymitragynine are also drugs. All of it together is kratom. Keep posted. I will keep talking about kratom, and I will keep trying to respond to comments on the videos. Thank you.